brand. And first I want to let everybody introduce themselves because they can talk better about themselves than I can talk about them. So I want to start with Christina and have her introduce herself.
Hello. My name is Christina Sue. I manage all the online marketing efforts for Tommy Hilfiger, including SEO, SEM, of course emails, the promotions, affiliate marketing, and display.
I'm Todd Wilson. I'm a senior marketing consultant with ExactTarget. I help our clients navigate both email and social media opportunities and solutions.
Great. My name is Jeff Rosenzweig. I've had the privilege of working for a couple large online brands. I was at Travelocity for a while running their email program. I was there for the introduction of the Roaming Gnome. And the last year and a half I've been at Match.com running their CRM and email marketing program.
Great. Thanks, everybody. What we're going to talk about today is brand. So a lot of the things we've talked about in the last couple days have been social and email, have been how do we win back customers, how do we really talk about our products and services to our customers, right? And that involves how we portray our brand. And a lot of the decisions we have to make are based upon what our brand identity is or what we want our customers at the end of the day to believe that we do. And so we wanted to talk today about how does that brand decision come into play when we're planning out what our strategies and our tactics, right? And how is it a part of our everyday life and how to make that better, right? And so I want to start the conversation off with each of the panelists and just go into what does brand and email mean to you from a process standpoint, from a decision-making standpoint, from an approval standpoint. How does brand affect what you're doing every day with your own company, with stuff you've done in the past? Todd, in your case with clients, how is that transform what you do as an email marketer?
Well, in a lot of cases, there's switch times when we talk to email teams, and data is the overwhelming item of importance we talk about. Data is king. My own CTO says data is king, but you've got to wrap it in something, right? If we only emailed our customers based on data, we'd be sending text messages. So there's got to be some kind of appeal in that email that appeals to the lizard brain that reaches out to you and makes them say, I want that. So we really work with clients as best as we can to try to get that brand presence in the communications as much as possible. Because if you think about it, email is unique in a very specific way. People are reaching out to you and asking you to communicate with them. So from my perspective, from that, we should really be the tip of the spear to the brand experience when we hit their inbox. That's where we should really be talking about the importance of the brand itself.
Sure. I view brand and email, it's really the emotional enabler and facilitator. On the enablement side, it enables me to really get noticed and make the first impression when we hit the inbox. Right from the front line, it creates an emotional response and hopefully drives people to open. It also kind of allows us to build a longer-term relationship and take a more longitudinal look and affords us the opportunity to do a little bit more testing. We're able to do some things given that relationship that we might not be able to do otherwise, and find that our customers may be more forgiving if we don't hit it right on target. And from a facilitation point of view, once people open the email, it really facilitates the click and the conversion. Having that kind of behind the scenes, creating the emotional tie feeds in nicely to the rational decision making that people make when they get one of our offers.
And you've got a unique perspective because your brand is very much wrapped in people's future happiness, right? Match.com is dating, right? So when you're sending emails and they come across the inbox, it's very much wrapped in somebody's perception of how they're going to be 20 years from now or 10 years from now. So it's about, how much is it about balancing that personal drive with the promotional offer that you have?
Yeah, I mean, I've spoken to a number of you here, and it is a kind of interesting model. It's kind of the crossroads or intersection where social networking meets e-commerce. We have a peer-to-peer model as well as a B2C model, and we're constantly balancing those two. I think we find that the emotional and aspirational nature of the business is what really drives performance. And so we have a number of different streams and utilize our brand to highlight notifications, reminders when people are showing interest in each other, but then we augment that and complement it with offers if people may not be getting quite as much interest. And so the aspirational and experiential part plays a very large piece of what we do here at Match, and kind of what we did at Travelocity too, which is all about experiences as well.
Mm-hmm. Christina, from Tommy's perspective, you're kind of a premier brand, right? And so that has to cascade into what you're doing in email.
Yeah, for us, brand can mean a variety of different things. It could be a simple logo, our flag logo, that is just registers in everybody's minds as Tommy Hilfiger. It's a very global brand. It could be the face of Tommy himself. And as far as the emails are concerned, I mean, when we deploy our emails, we obviously think of it as, you either have signed up on our site or you've converted, so you're loyal to the brand. For us, it's like we mentioned, it's very emotional. I mean, it's a very fickle, competitive retail landscape out there. I mean, what makes somebody want to purchase from us versus like a Ralph Lauren versus an Amazon? I mean, there's not just the offline and also online channels, there's also the online-only channels from like the Guilds and Brulalas. How do we make ourselves stand out? And I think a lot of it is the branding aspect of the company, things that aren't as measurable as, say, metrics that you could put a number to it. So, people have really related to the brand since like 1985, so I think that's a really important aspect of the.
How do you balance promotional with the brand, right? Because we're getting emails every day and they say free shipping, sale, 50% off, and this is the deal of the week, right? And we see less and less engagement, and we're trying to push that as an industry. But how do you see the balance between the 15% off or this closed on sale, or maybe you're not, right? With the brand perspective that you have as being kind of a premier brand.
Well, we do that in several different ways. I mean, depending on the channel, if we really look at the affiliate channel, for example, on those coupon sites, I mean, we see ourselves, say, next to an offer from Gap. So we obviously need to remain really competitive in terms of offers, and we see that as like a new customer acquisition channel. But as far as the email is concerned, I mean, we know you've purchased, you're loyal to the brand, and as far as the email cadence is concerned, I mean, we obviously have the promotion offers, deal of the day, Black Friday, Cyber Monday deals, but a couple times a month we'll have a trend email. We'll also have view our fall 2012 runway, but shop our spring. So a lot of branding emails. A couple times a month, very trend fashion focused.
If you treat your email program like a direct mail program, like a direct mail flyer, your customer's going to treat it like that. So you have to make sure that there's a really strong emotive element to what you're saying, and to try to build that shared value component that we talked about yesterday. I think that's really critical to think about when you think about your customers, because there are so many options out there for them to shop from. There's a great piece in Forrester this year about how the experience is becoming the differentiator with companies, because so many companies are selling so many similar things now that the experience has to be the differentiator. And I think that if you look at your email and your brand experience through email in that perspective, you can make a big difference.
Joe?
Oh, sure. Well, the way we did it when I was at Travelocity during the tenure of the Roaming Gnome campaign, given his personality, we tended to include him in a lot of our newsletters and promotional emails and highlight his personality with little random quips. And part of the brand guidelines were he could not shill for the business. We wanted him to remain an impartial advocate for the brand. And so bringing that element into our communications kind of just reinforced the whole message. At Brand, our current kind of ad campaign supporting the brand is 1 in 5 relationships start online and more of them start at Match. And we tend to reinforce that message in a lot of our communications, especially the ones that feature people from Match. So when we're trying to match people up, we'll kind of have that tagline in there just to let them know that they're at the right place in order to hopefully start their relationship.
One of the things we talked about prior to the conference was who controls the brand, right, from a guideline perspective. And we all go through approval processes, and we come up with this idea, and we have to send it off to this department to see if it's within the brand guidelines, right? And sometimes that slows down progress. It slows down how we get emails out. But then we also struggle with how do we communicate what email is as opposed to direct mail or radio or TV or what it is. So two questions really. Where is email or where is brand controlled within your processes? Is it beholden to you to approve that and have your own brand guidelines, or do you have to send it off? And how do you communicate the unique perspective that email brings as opposed to everything else, right? Todd, you want to start?
To start off, we work with a lot of clients, obviously, in the email space, and it's fascinating to me to see how they deal with brand. And a lot of cases, with a lot of really big brands, a lot of really beloved brands, legal controls more of what gets out than the brand does. And that's really disconcerting. Because we have some of the brands that we work with are some of the most beloved brands in the world, and when the message that they're trying to get out there and the opportunity that they have in the email space is being diluted by a very rigid set of guidelines, it's really disconcerting. So we see some that face that. We see some that really embrace it and run with it. Columbia Sportswear is a good example of a client of ours who's done a fantastic job with getting their brand very, very aligned with their email program. And their brand teams sit at the table with the email teams, and they're very closely integrated.
You talked about the gnome, right? And so we all know what the gnome was and saw it everywhere. How did that happen at Travelocity to keep it from going crazy, right? And putting the gnome in really inappropriate situations?
There were some very restrictive brand owners, gnome keepers, per se, and they had strict guidelines as far as how it can be placed, how it could be used. When we came up with our concepts for email to include the gnome, we would always kind of run it past that team just to get their sign off, and often it was a collaborative process on ways to kind of make the gnome a more synergistic element, with the offers and content that we were trying to include in the emails. At Match, it's a little looser. Our president has a PR background, and she's very in tune with messaging. So occasionally she'll, like to be a part of the content that we create. But for the most part, we're all kind of empowered to utilize the brand message and the brand promise in the way that we see best fit for our respective channels.
Christina?
For us, it's definitely an internal challenge from concept to launch in terms of the creative. So we work really closely with our brand marketing team that obviously is very well involved in the font, the campaign, the treatment of all the creative on all the different channels. Work really closely with them, and in a way, our graphic designer, who's 100% dedicated to all online deliverables, he actually sits physically and also reports into our brand marketing team to ensure all the branding guidelines are met. As far as the workflow and the approval process, at the end of the day, our team is really focused on driving the sales, making sure the communication is clear. We definitely try to integrate our branding campaign. So just last year we launched our what we call our Meet the Hilfigers campaign. So for the most part, Tommy hasn't done any brand marketing presence for about 5 years or so. And last year they came up with this concept of a fictitious family. They're kind of following us kind of everywhere. You want to be a part of the family, and they're dressed head to toe from Macy's product to our outlet product to our specialty product. So you kind of want to be a part of the family. So we try to integrate the campaign in all our different collaterals, but also keeping into mind like we want to drive sales at the end of the day.
So talk about that a little bit in a multi-channel environment where you've got TV involved and radio and all this different stuff. How do you adapt that and have that conversation about how email is different?
Our brand marketing team runs the media buys for magazines, TV, taxi ads, so all the, essentially the offline channels. There's definitely, there's definitely more synergy among all the different channels. For us, in terms of the affiliate, display, and email channels, there's different sorts of communication between all the different channels. For affiliate, we see it as it's very promotional, and so the messaging needs to be highly promotional. If you were to go on our homepage now, you don't really see any promotions, you don't see any coupons. The most we'll ever do is say a free shipping on a banner, but we definitely sort of think about where they're coming from, traffic source wise, and how we communicate to our customers.
Todd?
Yeah, I love the comment in the last panel from Engage about how those who are doing the same thing in every channel are really just giving up. I think that's absolutely true. What's fascinating is really using each one of the channels available to customize the message to make it work for that type of audience, because your Facebook followers and your Twitter followers are going to want much different things than your email followers. So we work very hard with our clients to get that point across and to try to customize those strategies whenever humanly possible.
Just to kind of compare the TV channel and the email channel, in our offline advertising, sometimes we'll feature first dates and put a camera on them at a distance and try and make it as real an experience as possible. On the email side, we were fortunate to work with Microsoft and utilized our Hotmail Active View technology and put together a campaign that took more of a kind of breadth than a depth approach that we have in some of our TV advertising. And so we were able to basically take people's search criteria, what they seek, and at the time they were opening, pull back about 36 different matches for them and display them in a carousel format. And as people wanted, they can scroll through, find the match that's for them, and we would dynamically populate the person who they had highlighted. And if that search was too limiting, they could actually fill out information in a search form to bring back a fresh new set of matches. And found this to be a pretty effective way, kind of complement what we were doing online, or via TV.
So let's start the discussion on how you measure the results, right? How do you measure success on either brand building campaigns? Some companies have buzz departments, right, that measure kind of the social activity that goes on after you send an email or after you do a commercial or look at Twitter feeds and look at traffic to the site. How are you measuring it? Is it a formal process like that, or is it just, is there a way to measure it?
Well, I started with Tommy last year, in October of last year, and when I first started, we're just meeting with different departments within the company, and kind of occurred to me that they were doing a lot of driving traffic to the site, a lot of media buys on New York Times, ESPN.com, a lot of site buys, and yet we weren't tracking any of that. So, we're obviously a very offline focused channel. It's very TV and magazine focused kind of media buying kind of company. And it just occurred to me that we weren't playing any pixels. There was no dark tracking, and I think we're definitely moving. Towards the making sure we're sharing results and engagement rate, response rates for both our brand marketing team and e-commerce.
Is there a learning inside of your organization to meet on a regular basis and say, hey, here's the successes we're seeing? Maybe it translates to search or the keywords that search is using to drive traffic is playing over to how you build your subject line in your email or something, to that effect.
Yeah, we have monthly touch bases between us and our brand marketing team as far as what branding campaigns are coming out and what kind of media places that they're having their buys on. We integrate that with our gift guide, for example. If we have a sophisticated shopper New York Times email, it talks about gift giving. We make sure that our gift guide is up and running and live before the email deploys. So we do a lot of external traffic driving, but we also work really closely with our team upstairs to ensure the messaging is clear. The last thing you want to do is drive traffic to the site and the gift guide isn't even live.
One thing that we do is really look at the long-term value from the email perspective. So looking at with folks who are getting a strong branding message versus those who may not be, if they're more engaged over time, if they're purchasing more over time, if their clicks and opens are more active over time, and all the other extraneous data that we have, just to try to gauge whether that brand experience we're trying to deliver is driving them to be more loyal and more active. As there's a quote that I heard a little while ago, and I think it was Sam Kinison, of all people, who said that you don't want 90% of people to like you want 10% of people to love you. And if you can deliver that type of brand experience that makes that 10% love you, then they're gonna be your advocates and really make that needle move.
On our side, measuring brand is definitely difficult in email. We tend to do it a little bit more indirectly, just to see what the halo effect is on other channels. After we send out a brand message or a message with an offer, and kind of attribute that lift to the email itself. You could measure it directly too, although I probably would not advocate it. Just go to your from line. When someone gets your email, they see the brand. If you wanted to switch out the brand, you can kind of do an A/B and definitely measure. But I probably undermine your brand, so I probably wouldn't suggest that.
So let's jump to at the beginning of the conference. Started with a panel, and Della was on it, right? And we all love Della, and he has a lot of different thoughts on. Is he in here?
No.
Okay. Cool. I can talk about him behind his back. So he has a lot of comments on how frequency and cadence come into play about how you make email successful. And some of them are increased frequency, send to them until they die. Different concepts, and some of them work, some of them are great, some of them don't. But we get into a discussion on how does cadence affect your brand, right? And how do we take that into account? And how do we put into place and say, okay, we need to think about how many emails we're sending, and we're not going to send too many because that's going to affect our brand. And so the question is, how do we balance cadence, or how does that come into play in the decision-making process? In determining how many emails we're sending, does brand pull into some of the strategies that we're coming up with to make sure that we don't devastate our brand out there and lose a customer just, beyond just email, right?
Yeah. Well, I think one of I think cadence done poorly can have a very, very serious effect on your brand. There's one example I can think of off the top of my head of a company that just went out of business that was emailing me virtually every single day. It's like, who do you think I am? Do you respect this relationship? Because I like you, and I like going to your stores and buying stuff, but evidently you're not really giving me the benefit of the doubt here. There's another one recently that's been doing the same thing to me. But I think that cadence is tricky. It's not one of those things. Again, it depends question. I've worked with clients like shopping networks, for example, who send out something every single day, but that's what their customers want, and the results prove it. Others that shouldn't be mailing more than once and twice a week. It just depends on. Again, I hate to say it, but it depends on what they're looking for from you.
I mean, I think when you work for an established brand, you have a little bit more leeway. They're willing to cut you some slack, and it definitely depends, Todd, as you mentioned, on the industry and the service that you're providing. If it's a repeatable service, something that people want and need on a regular basis, then they're willing to allow you to email them more often. We actually challenged the cadence, frequency when I was at Travelocity. We had been sending fair sale emails out on a pretty regular basis, but our executive team had challenged us and said, why not daily? And we were a little apprehensive at first. We thought that, we did induce a little bit more fatigue and attrition, but we ran a test for like 3 months' time, and found that, it really had very little impact on unsubscribes and attrition, where we saw the biggest impact was just on open rates. But overall, from a transactional and lifetime value perspective, it was net positive to actually email people more often. And I've seen that repeat itself a little bit at Match as well. So I don't worry as much about the cadence piece right now. We've got a lot of dashboards and monitoring in place to see if there's any type of impact on that. And don't get me wrong, we're not totally over emailing them, but when we think about increasing the frequency or moving a few levers here and there, we usually will move forward with that.
For us, it's a balance of our usual promotional emails. Between promotional transactional emails and order confirmation, shipping confirmation, abandoned cart emails, welcome emails. We have a matrix of different type of emails that a customer might receive. We ensure that one customer might not receive more than 3 emails a week. So we definitely run a lot of queries to ensure that we're not over mailing. Our revenue per email sent is not decreasing like month over month or year over year. Prior to Tommy, I worked at LordandTaylor.com. They had a really robust CRM team there, and we were essentially, given the resources, we were uploading maybe 2 emails a day for 7 days a week, so it was essentially 14 emails. But we were also ensuring we were segmenting a lot based on recency, frequency, and monetary, based on spend, based on offline behavior and also online behavior. So it's really just a balance of all the different communications.
Who do you guys think is doing this right? Who balances brand with cadence in their email program and just it does a nice job at balancing promotional and brand and just their email program? Who's doing it right? Todd, you've got exposure to a lot of clients.
Okay, I absolutely loved what Patagonia did on Cyber Monday. I don't know if you saw the email or not, but it was basically a shot of a jacket that said, "Don't buy this jacket." It's what's great about it is that Patagonia, those who really love the brand, know that they're extraordinarily focused on being sustainable. And that was a great message to say. The message was, when you need a jacket, buy from us. But if you don't need one, don't do it. I think that there's Columbia, as I mentioned, does a great job. I think Container Store does a really nice job with their branding and their email messages. As far as daily deal sites, I think that Scout Mob does a fantastic job. They're not in every city right now, but they make their emails fun. I mean, they make them really entertaining, and they really know their cities extremely well. Those are the top ones that come up off the top of my head. Jeff?
I'm going to go for the easy ones on this, but I think Apple and actually Harry and David does a nice job. Gilt Group, I really like the colors and textures they create in their emails to kind of reinforce their whole experience, and kind of understates the promotional aspect, but really, really beautiful to look at, and I think stuff that we're often trying to emulate.
I would have to agree on Apple. I think they are quintessentially the single most viable company in how they communicate their brand via email and all their channels. Because you look at an Apple email and it just portrays this clean, easy look. Right.
Yeah, and just to add on that, I did a blog post about branding a little while ago, and Apple's an example that I use because what's so cool about Apple is that, and they're used as an example for everything, but they brand everything. Their packaging, the plugs in their computers, the way they're unattached. It's fantastic what they do, and the focus on design over anything else is just critical and amazing.
Does that work for everybody? I mean, so I've been in meetings where I'll walk into a client and they'll slap down an Apple ad or they'll slap down something else and they say, we want to be Apple, right? Does that work? I mean, how do you communicate that ain't going to work?
Yeah, I mean, I'd never recommend a one-size-fits-all for anybody. It's not going to work for everyone. But I think that there are certainly lessons to learn. A lot of the things that we talked about, I was in AdTech a few weeks ago, and people were talking about the fact that it was one of the speakers from a major brand said, if you haven't tested this with an audience, you don't have a strategy. And my first tweet back to them was, Steve Jobs would beg to differ, because they didn't test the iPod. They didn't test half the things that they do. They just know, it's knowing and finding a need that people didn't even know existed. But I don't think that a lot of companies can really pull that together. I think it's a very unique circumstance, but I think that there's, like I said, a lot to learn from what they do.
Christina, who do you think's doing it right?
I think I personally love the Lululemon emails. The brand itself, it's a lot about the community. I think in a way, maybe it's like the apparel / athletic sportswear possibly, but it's about the community. How do you differentiate yourself in a very competitive space? They offer free yoga classes. It's not just about like, here's your jacket. We want you to purchase it for $200. It's about the quality of the brand, and also driving that loyal following. I mean, they do have their logos on pretty much everything, but you're just very loyal to the brand and also what it represents.
Let's open it up to the group. What questions do we have from the audience that we can ask? There we go.
So that ad you were talking about, which was the advertisement that you had just mentioned?
Oh, Patagonia?
Patagonia ad. That, I think one of the big reasons I think that's very cool, and I think one of the big reasons it was really successful is they integrated it across every channel. It was search, email, display, in-store, point of sale, everywhere. And I think that's really, getting to that level of integration is where you can really see some big...
I totally agree.
Real quick for the audience.
Oh, I'm Nicholas Einstein from Pulse Point.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And we were talking last night at dinner about the fact that one of the things I recommend with clients when we first meet with them is that every quarter we get together with every single agency you've got and every single stakeholder you've got. And we sit around a table and we talk about what we want to do. And that's the only way stuff like that usually gets done, because as we mentioned, the silos internally in companies are so rigid in some cases that you really need to get those people around a table and start throwing these out and then come to a consensus and say, this is what we're going to do.
And that brings up a good point. From a perspective of strategy, do you guys sit around, in each of your different divisions and responsibilities, sit around from a strategy perspective and start with how are we going to, or not start with, but I think how does brand fit into all the strategies you're coming up with and the programs you're going to launch, right? Jeff?
Yeah, sure. again, we're the leader in the online personal space, and so I look at it more from a complementary point of view. What can the brand do to reinforce the promotional messages and other things that we're trying to get across? And so, do my best not to detract, but it's just more of a enabler, and as far as us driving conversion and bottom line.
Yeah, I think the meeting with all the different agencies is really good. A good idea. I mean, for us, we have an agency that runs pretty much every channel, from display, affiliate, our branding agency, and so as far as to the customer, they don't know that there's maybe 20 agencies involved in getting one message across. I think that's definitely really helpful. I mean, I've never done that in my professional career, but I think it's a really good point.
And who are you? I just want to hear you say it.
I'm Alex from Trendline. Hello, world. So, like, Apple gets a free pass. Apple are email blasters. They batch and blast. I buy the iPad 2. The next day, I get an offer to buy it again. How much relevancy is branding? Because, like, there's a certain area there where I think there's an association if you're doing things wrong that negatively impacts the brand versus just the visual aspect. So how do you weight that panel?
I think that relevancy, a lot of what happens with brand now, I mentioned that experience is a differentiator. I think that has to make us think outside of our usual sandbox into customer service. And I think that relevancy comes into that in some regard as well. There was a great eMarketer study last year maybe about what people expect in customization, what they expect companies to know about them. And it's a far cry from the days when we could put a first name in an email and people would say, wow, that's really cool. They want to know what type of, how often they've shopped with you. They want you to know if you're new or returning. That type of thing. If you can make that kind of segmentation in the email, I think that creates a positive brand experience because they understand that you know enough about them to know what type of customer they are.
It's funny. We did a really in-depth study on the political campaigns on the GOP side and on the Democratic side for the presidential election for one of our clients. And what we found is that the political campaigns aren't doing it right at all, and they're doing exactly what you described with Apple. One of the things that we noticed is that we did a few test donations and wanted to see transactional email, we wanted to see recognition emails, we wanted to see what happened after that. And what we found was by donating to to some of the political campaigns, they never looked at it again from a future campaign. So you donate one day, and the next day they come back and say, hey, would you like to donate again? Or not even again, would you like to donate, right? So what we found is that can impact the brand of the political campaign because the person has a personal investment in that donation, right? And so they want acknowledgement. They want acknowledgement that you got their money, and they want acknowledgement that you're going to stand up for them in government, right? And so we have seen that there is some negative impact to the brand of, at least in that example, to not acknowledging the prior action of the individual.
I'm sorry to add one more thing about the Container Store I mentioned earlier. One of the things they do to help set preferences is the second email they send when you sign up to receive emails from them is they send a message that says, what are your interests? What do you like? And I think that in itself, one, it helps you segment better down the road, but it also shows the consumer that they're concerned about you and what your interests are. And I think that's a really nice approach that I don't see enough.
I mean, we look at relevancy along two axes. We look at is it personalized, is it compelling? And so we just try and blow both of those out as much as possible. We have such rich profile data in our database, and just kind of the entry into the game is, what gender are you seeking, age parameters, where you live, things like that. But we have some pretty sophisticated algorithms that we include. Things such as like popularity models. We are able to track user behavior on the site and use that kind of feedback to determine who our more attractive or popular members are as far as how we basically serve up matches to those people. And on the compellingness side, we've done a lot of testing on discount levels, and that's a big driver for our business. But if we get both of those right, then I think the cadence kind of takes care of itself.
For us, we do a lot of display retargeting efforts. So, if you were on our homepage, you abandon, you exit the site, we'll serve you up an ad that speaks to a promotion. So you're abandoning the homepage for a certain reason. If you're browsing the site, you're browsing 5 product pages or so, we'll serve you up a dynamic product feed ad. So it really depends on where you're on the site and what type of messaging we're sending to you. I mean, we also retarget users based on if you've already converted. So you're already on the order confirmation page. And I think the end goal for us is to drive the traffic, to have a good conversion rate, but not only that, to retarget customers to convert again, to return, and to not purchase only when it's during a promotional period. We want them to buy full price, obviously, as to not erode our margin, our brand. So that's pretty much like our end goal.
Even you have to say your name, I've been told.
Jory Wendell Moberg.
There you go.
Okay. Lauren McDonald, Silver Pop. It's a follow-up question to the kind of the cadence question. So, most every marketer that I talk to actually wants to send more email, right? Despite what we all say in the industry, and it seems that there are a couple of different approaches, right? Some clients I've worked with are just changing their whole sort of approach to all of their emails. So just every email has more personality, more content, more education and stuff like that, intermixed with kind of the promotional buy. And others are taking more of a mix. So some emails are very aggressive promotional, and then they're intermix it with others that are have humor in it. They're like the Patagonia one, which is don't buy or whatever it is, but there's sort of more personality. So just to the brands, like how do you guys think about that? How do you think about the approach of that sort of mix, and how you can ultimately send more email, if you will?
We used to get pretty kitschy in some of our messages, and found that our members kind of grew tired of that, and they just wanted us to be very simple and direct. And so that's kind of the approach we're taking now, very concise messaging, simple calls to action, really trying to get them to open and click as quickly as possible. So, because our product is really about people, and it's a little bit different than potentially people selling goods, or consumer packaged goods or other types of things.
For us, it's definitely a challenge in balancing what we call like our branding emails versus our transactional emails. I mean, my boss is concerned at driving revenue, but our brand marketing team might think otherwise. I think it's definitely a challenge, and also a good balance between that. I mean, we do a lot of testing in terms of like text email versus a image email. I mean, does our campaign really register to our user? When we do campaign emails, we ensure that we have a microsite to support the campaign, and we can make it shoppable. So, years and years ago, we probably would have sent it to a commercial and being hosted on a third-party site, not being able to share. So we've done a lot of, making a lot of the branding aspect of it shoppable, so at least we're driving the revenue as well.
Actually, one other thing I just thought of, we used to use a lot of stock photography in our emails. These models who people aspire to date, and they know, they've seen them in other ads and other places, and we're trying to get rid of that entirely. We have Spotlight members. When people sign up on our site, they can check the box, and we'll go ahead and feature real people now as much as we can in our emails. It just gives our brand a more real, tangible feel, and something that I think people will find more credible and believable.
Any other questions? Thoughts, reactions?
We
There
got
we go.
one more.
Sylvia from Selling Source. I was just saying that made me think about my friends that met through Match.com that just had a baby, about 6
Great.
months old. So
Very nice.
it's very interesting how your product is very different in the sense that you almost don't want a repeat customer. You want success story to drive more people to come to the brand. So, and also, is Match.com doing anything in terms of groups, social media, to share the stories too?
So we have a success story site, and it's amazing, these people who do meet on Match, they'll send in their stories. Some will create directed videos, and we have a stand-up every day, and on Thursdays we share one success story to the team, and we all feel pretty good about what we're doing. So, yeah, I mean, from a group dating perspective, I mean, I think some areas that we're looking at, we know that that's taking off right now, but yeah, I think we're all pretty, happy we're in this. We're feeling like we're doing some good things, and at the end of the day, there's some intrinsic rewards for us as well as the extrinsic.
Wonderful. I think that's it. Yeah. So, thank you very much, panelists. Give them a round of applause.